You've got gaming on the brain.
Welcome back to the Gaming on the Brain podcast. This is episode number 16. I'm Mark, and I'm here with the other half of your podcast hosting team, Glenn.
How are you doing?
Today, we've got a bit of a juicy sausage lined up for you in the shape of Sunset Riders. As always, we'll be tackling multi-format for this one. Well, I'll say as always for this one.
3 versions, yeah.
Ourselves there. But so there's 3 versions to look at. I'm more familiar myself with the arcade one. It's been a long time since I played the Super Nintendo and Mega Drive or Genesis versions. But Uncle Glenn here has all the information on those because he's been swatting up on them lately.
Yes, absolutely.
So with that, I'm going to hand over to Glenn because the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what's your favourite version, Glenn?
Oh, Christ, I thought you threw this one out. Well, obviously the arcade.
I should have probably asked
it has
at
to
the
be
end,
the arcade.
I want to ask first.
No, sorry, because I'll get into why in a bit, and why I'll surprise you as what my number 2 version is now. But the arcade version is obviously the best. I mean, it's the thing that blew me away about Sunset Riders, the arcade game, initially was the amazing presentation. I mean, everybody here who's listened to this and who knows what Sunset Riders is will be completely aware of that amazing intro, and the music. When the arcade operator turns the music on, yourself, it just totally dominates.
It's that full fit. The Western music comes on, and then you've got the sunset obviously in the background, and the dark shadow cowboys.
Without sounding arty-farty and all that, I definitely think it's got that amazing Japanese mesh up with the American style, coming from like Sergio Leone's spaghetti western films, back in the 60s with Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef and that. You get that vibe, which is deliberate, obviously.
Japanese western.
Yeah, it's a Japanese made game with the Japanese artwork, but with a western vibe, obviously.
Yeah, I get you right.
But quickly though, I mean, the arcade version wasn't the version I put the most time in initially. Though it was actually the Super Nintendo version because I'd picked that up for cheap at a second-hand shop. I knew of the game. I'd known of the game for about 2 years, and I'd played it a little bit in the arcade, but I hadn't put enough time into it. I'd seen people complete it once or twice.
When was this? Because I remember we used to play it together on the SNES.
It's well after the release of the original game. I'm going to say it's around about... It's
97 or something? 96?
No, it's later.
Later?
It's a bit later, yeah, because I'm trying to think of who I was knocking around with at the time.
We had the PlayStation then. I can't imagine us playing Sunset Riders.
I got the Super Gun in between. I was still not remember where I was bouncing back at that time as well.
You were well into them for a little bit.
You might be right about the year though. I actually thought it was a little bit later in the early noughties, about 2001, 2, but I think it might have been about 98, 99. So it's still a good 20 odd year ago at least.
Early 2001 was when I discovered MAME, if you remember. So then we kind of tailed off a bit from the Super Gun, and we were just fighting different games.
Do you remember though when I had that Super Gun though, when people were coming in and were just blown away? Yeah, well, one blew up, and they were coming in and just playing like obviously Golden Axe 1 and 2 and the Double Dragons and Sunset Riders and that. And I had a few obscure games. I remember we got Combo Tribes and that, which was another great one.
I remember trying to explain to my friends that you've got an arcade machine, but it's a little box. And don't be stupid. It's a big cabinet. It's like, no, that's just a power supply.
Yeah, it's great, man. It was a great thing. But honestly, we've still got that telly. I've still got that.
The little portable,
which is it's almost like nostalgic. I use that to test the old consoles. Still works great. I bought that in 1994 for £200. It's a little Nokia telly. I've still got that. I've dropped it before and it's still working. But
it's like Nokia phones. It's invincible.
Well, and they're worth a fortune now and all. So I wonder how much that telly's worth. But with Sunset Riders, like I says, I mean, I was mostly introduced where I put time into it on the Super Nintendo version, which shortly after that I picked up the Mega Drive and then played that version. It's its own beast, which we'll get to shortly. And that was when I decided, right, I'm going to plonk down the money for a PCB, which is about £100 at the time.
I was going to say, you wouldn't have paid much back then for that.
Well, bear in mind, I mean, £100 was still more than pennies, but these were still considered...
2 Mega Drive games or SNES games.
Yeah, but I mean, even in 98, 99, that game was still in some arcades,
Yeah.
I mean, it would be like, like there'd be arcades still that had a double Dragon cab kicking about, because, even up until the early noughties, you could find the odd Chippy with a Space Invaders cab still sitting there, which was amazing,
Aye.
especially in Bournemouth and that, and down the seafront, some of the seafront anyway, but not locally anymore. But anyway, so Sunset Riders, again, presentation mainly with me in that game. I mean, it's so
Bright.
so
Colourful.
colourful, so bright, so it just pops. The game just pops. I mean, obviously we're talking more about the arcade game here, but this does apply to at least the Super Nintendo version. I'll get to why it doesn't in the Mega Drive version, but that does have its own little positives. But it just it's a 4-player. Well, it's a 2 or 4-player cabinet. You can get it in several variations.
Yeah.
In 4-player mode, it takes the Turtles route basically, in that you've got each joystick and controls is fixed to an individual character, isn't it?
Character, yeah.
Unlike Turtles, so they're not similar games. They're both action games, but Turtles is obviously a beat 'em up.
It feels a bit like a shoot 'em up version of Turtles.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what it is. Well, it's basically like Contra, isn't it? It's a run and gun.
Yeah,
so
I suppose it's an evolution of like Contra and that.
I love it because it's tough, but at the same time it's easy because in the arcade version you chuck a credit in, you continue where you left off. At the end of the day, there's no more satisfying than completing it. You could have spent £5 back in the day on that, but if you clocked it, you would have went, well, I'm satisfied. So I like this sort of like just being able to continue where you left off. So you get punished, you lose your lives, and you lose your power-ups as well. But you obviously can still come back and just keep on pushing, you know.
I think based on, we've just done the playthrough there, obviously, based on what I've just played there, it's been a while, I would have said an average player would stick 20 pence in, or however much a credit is, and he'd probably make it halfway through the first level, and that would be it. Well, I might make it to the boss if he's a bit more experienced.
The first couple of levels are not too bad, but the difficulty does ramp up great. You might get through level 3 even as well, but by about level 4, bear in mind, like level 4 is a short level that sort of it branches off from level 3. Actually, you don't really realise it's its own level because it's just a single screen, but it's tough, you know, with the Smith brothers.
Yeah.
You know, they try to bomb you and firebomb you as well.
It's just constant lives being sapped and money having to go in.
Which you see on the long play, didn't you? So,
I
mean, we probably could have played a bit better. Bear in mind, obviously, we're playing with infinite lives, so we're just having fun, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an arcade game completely at its core.
It's a Konami arcade.
It's a Konami arcade game at its core, and it does exactly what you expect it to do, and it does it right. I mean, it's still fun, and I said as long as you feel you can get to the end of it, then that's doing the perfect thing because you'll put the money in. Obviously, it loops as well, as we just found out again. It's been a while since I played, but it does loop, so you could keep on playing, you know, if you wanted to rack up those scores. So
it makes it very difficult for a clean break for
which
podcast
it did for us, did it? Yeah, we'll run out of lives and not continue like. But like I say, the arcade machine though, it is an absolute showstopper for its pure everything. The music, as it says, it just blows you away. The soundtrack's a real earworm, wasn't it? I mean, you can switch off that and tunes will still be kicking around in your head.
Wasn't it quite a popular cabinet?
A very popular game in the day. I remember seeing this in at least 3 or 4 arcades back in the day. I think I'd seen at least 1 or 2 2-player variations, and I think I'd never actually seen the 4-player variation actually, but it's possible that this was only released as a kit, so it may have only come out as a conversion of a Konami Turtles
do you reckon?
cab, but I mean, I haven't double checked any of the flyers recently. Obviously, you can't.
I think it's the same cabinet. Well, it is. I was watching.
I
was watching a podcast. I can't remember it.
It'll come out about the same time as Vendetta, though, wouldn't it? With 1991, possibly even Turtles 2. Turtles of Time.
Well, that was it. I was watching Cool Toys on YouTube the other day, his channel, and he was talking to the is it Numbskull who do the quarter arcades?
I believe it is them actually.
Yeah, and he was talking about the obviously Sunset Riders and how they're having difficulty releasing that one because of the rights Konami.
Why are they having them difficulty, Mark?
Well, Konami weren't very good at hanging on to the
licensing, is it?
Information on who produced the artwork and who produced the music and stuff like that, so they don't know where the licenses are tied up.
Surely in this day of internet, though, you'd be able to find, like, that shouldn't be difficult to pinpoint somebody.
Well, they pretty much said,
it's obviously Japan.
From what Cool Toys was saying, they've pretty much said to Numbskull, if you're prepared to throw a load of money at it, we'll get the lawyers onto it. But otherwise, no chance.
I think as well, you know, it's almost certainly been held by a Japanese owner, isn't it?
Yeah, more likely, yeah.
Cool Toys being an American company, I'm going to assume.
No, well, it's a podcast channel. Like a channel on YouTube.
Well, they're an English speaking.
Numbskull is an English company.
That's what I mean. Numbskull. Sorry, my mistake. So Numbskull's an English company, though, English speaking. You're always going to have that. I mean, at the minute, I'm trying to speak to people in South Korea because I'm trying to get certain games from South Korea, and it's like pulling duck's teeth. It doesn't exist. So it's tough. So Japanese and I find Japan to be a little bit more accessible.
Yeah.
obviously with all the websites you can get on now, and all the what's the word for it? All the proxy buyer sites, sorry, that they'll buy goods for you and that, or contact Japanese speaking sellers on like Yahoo Japan and whatnot. So yeah, it's quite. I mean, I could, if I wanted it's just as a good example while we're talking about Sunset Riders. If I wanted a Japanese Sunset Riders PCB now, there probably is at least one on Yahoo Japan auctions right now, and I would just go through a company. We're not shilling here, by the way, but it's just a company I do use called Buyee. And obviously, I'd be able to have bids on or instant buy it now on that item.
Yeah. They
charge you through the nose, but if you've got a bit of money or you just really want a rare item, then you will get that item.
Well, if you're prepared to pay the money, you'll get your hands on it, won't you?
It's tougher with the Korean market, I've noticed. Like, but anyways, I see, But
yeah, Sunset Riders. I mean, I admit it's an enjoyable game. It's not one I would have rated like anywhere near the top, because there's so many other better games out there. There is, and Run and Guns. I mean, Metal Slug and that's probably better in my opinion.
But there's a context there. I mean, there's a few years between the two.
Absolutely,
I mean, Metal Slug was Metal Slug
better
95
hardware.
or 96?
I think it was 95 off the top of my head.
I mean, yeah, it is very different hardware.
But it is a fun game. I like the comedy in it. It does feel like, I say, like a shoot 'em up versions of Turtles.
But that's something else about Sunset Riders. It's a game that in theory should be bloody and violent if it wanted to be. I mean, they could have done it in a gritty, darker style, actually similar to the films it's clearly based on, and the era it's based on. But it's done like a Tom and Jerry cartoon.
Well, it very much feels like it's based on like an IP, doesn't it? Like
does,
Turtles
like,
and Simpsons and stuff
and
like that.
initially I would have thought it was, but I mean, there's been no evidence of that being the case, So the characters look like they've been created for the game, but they're all clearly like. You can see who they're imitating, like even the boss characters. Many of them are imitating classic characters from other films as well, like Blazing Saddles.
And Young Guns, Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, there's the elements of I mean, you can look through the whole game and you'll see at least one character here now probably looks like or reminds you of something from a famous film.
And we do know as well the I suppose unofficial semi-sequel is Cowboys of Moon Mesa, which is based on intellectual property. I mean, it's pretty much a copy and paste, isn't it?
Obscure as hell. I don't think this must have came out over here. It must be cartoons, but I never really looked into it too much.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're American only or something, because I've never seen it in Saturday morning cartoons.
For just so the audience is aware, I will be recording a full, probably one player, possibly two player playthrough of Cowboys of Moon Mesa and releasing it as a playthrough on the channel. So if you're interested in seeing the unofficial sequel to
I wouldn't
Sunset
mind playing
Riders,
through that actually again.
check it out.
I've only played it once, so I wouldn't mind getting involved with that. Just sit so close after playing the first game, and to me it is a sequel. But then we can also talk about Mystic Warriors,
yeah, which was the Konami
very
GX
similar with ninjas and that. Now you've got that thing, but it's exactly the same type of game. I think it came out between Sunset Riders and Cowboys of Moon Mesa, so you've got almost like a trilogy of these games ending in obviously the licensed game, because Mystic Warriors as well seems like it's its own property, like Crime Fighters and Vendetta, because obviously Konami is so well known back in the day for having licensed beat 'em ups and just games with a character attached to them, with a licensed character attached.
They did quite a few. I mean, there was like G.I. Joe, Bucky O'Hare, X-Men, Simpsons, Turtles. I mean, there's a big list of games that are based on existing IP, popular IP from like the mid 90s and that.
I remember seeing Violent Storm and thinking this has to be based on a comic. So it looked like clearly looked like it was, and it's like not. It's its own thing, and it's like great design.
I think they were just excelled at it though, didn't they? In the 90s, they were really good at creating these characters and these IPs. They didn't need to rely on like existing, intellectual property. But they did, and they made it work, and they got the best of both worlds. To me, I mean, the definitely. 90s Konami were smashing out.
It's my favourite period for them. I mean, obviously you've got the early days of Metal Gear as well. I mean, we have mentioned it before, just in passing, but
I detest them now.
Yeah, well, some people think Metal Gear Solid was the first Metal Gear game. You have to still be aware of the history in that, though. You have to be. I mean, even stuff like Snake's Revenge, which is a pariah. Most consider that like not only just a black sheep, but
you're not allowed to mention that game.
But it's actually on the recent collection. Did you know?
I know.
It's on there, which I like. I like that actually. I like that they've done that, because to me, if you want to be a completist, just get it on there anyway. So whether you, and to be honest, Mark, gone by, I know we're diversing a bit, but just for a second, but gone by what I've seen of it. I've never played through what I've seen. It's still a playable game. It's just because it sort of shits all over the Metal Gear name, and there was an official Metal Gear 2. So, and instead of that getting converted to like PAL territories or American NTSC. You had that as a Japanese exclusive back in the day, while you had this sort of American imitation, getting created and getting released over here.
Yeah.
So people would have called that Metal Gear 2 when there is a real Metal Gear 2 that just we didn't get to see. So
I'll be honest, I've never played it, but from the things I've heard and read about it, I've got no interest in playing it.
No, it's fair. But it said some people won't. You know what I mean? It's just it's a historical footnote for many.
Yeah. But Sunset Riders. Like I said, I'll release a long playthrough. Well, it won't be long, I don't think, but a playthrough of Cowboys and Moon Racer. So if you're interested, you'll be able to check that out. It will likely be live when this podcast goes live, early December. I think I've got it earmarked for this episode. We're actually building some up in the bank at the moment, aren't we, Glenn?
Yeah.
It's for the first time we've ever been able to do it, but I'm doing a lot of travel at the moment with work, so we're having to record episodes when we can and release every other week. Just so that we've got stuff to release on a schedule. Hopefully after the new year we'll get back to doing weekly. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. But back to Sunset Riders. So the arcade version, obviously, that's the template. What's the SNES like then? Or which one should we take? The SNES
the SNES has to come second because we have to put it in this order of arcade, SNES, Mega Drive for very clear reasons. It'll come obvious.
Yeah.
The SNES version is. I will point out one thing, though, mind, which the order should be in a different order, but I'll tell you why. The Mega Drive, the arcade game came out in '91. The Mega Drive came out in '92, and the SNES game in '93. Mega Drive was 1992. But
I thought it would have came out before the SNES version.
No, the Mega Drive did 1992.
No, sorry, I thought the SNES version would have came out with Konami and Nintendo.
That's the dates I've got. I've on the startup screens of both games. 92 for the Meg and
strange.
90, I know it is, but I think it's been deliberate. I think what's happened is right. We'll talk about the Mega Drive before going into proper detail where I want to put these games in order. The Mega Drive games clearly come first, and they've looked at what they've done with that. I'm not going to call them mistakes right now because that'll be up to listeners to decide, or those who played it back in the day on the Mega Drive. But they've made the Mega Drive version, and they've made the game within the limitations of the Mega Drive Genesis, and then they've looked at that and thought, well, maybe we need to make the game that's closer to the arcade version for the Super Nintendo version.
Right.
So when they've made this later version, it could have been just months, not a full year, they've made the later SNES version, and they've made that clearly much closer to the arcade. But anyway, I said, so we'll talk about the SNES version.
Yeah.
It is, to me, it's a 90% recreation of the arcade game. Very, very close. Very similar. I mean, for the first 5 levels, and this is very important, first 5 levels of the game are near 100% recreations of what you get from the arcade game. The sound, the music's great. You've got power-ups in exactly the same places. There's a couple of little oddities that you do spot in that the humorous animations where the enemy characters get burnt.
Yeah.
They're gone now. They weren't bloody at all. They weren't violent. They were done in a literally Tom and Jerry style.
Yeah.
It was something you'd see in Home Alone.
It's like an Acme.
Exactly that. I mean, you've even got those bits where people stand on rakes.
Yeah.
And then how many times we're seeing that in comedy, and I believe those are still in the SNES as well. But the when a character gets burnt by a Molotov, they just fall over and flash and die. The female characters, they're quite rare, but there was like a blonde female bandit who throws dynamite at you, and she's been removed. But that was expected, sort of, with the SNES's policy at the time. For some reason, they felt the need to not have women in games back then. But now, it's that's completely reversed.
While you were talking there, Glenn, I just thought I'd quickly have a look and see what the cartridge sizes were. So it turns out the Mega Drive version's only 4 megabit.
Yeah,
the SNES version's 8 megabit.
8 meg, yeah. I thought the SNES might have been 12 actually.
Right, it's coming up as a megabyte, so it's like 8 megabit.
That's fair enough, yeah. Again, it could be down to what they had at the time. But let's say with the Super Nintendo, so there's a couple of enemies missing. There's only a few basic enemy types in the arcade game anyway. The main emphasis on the cool bosses and their like different patterns and whatnot, But the Super Nintendo version does sort of fall apart a little bit after level 5, I found.
Yeah.
There's 8 levels in the game, as many might know, with a new boss at the end of each. We're talking about the arcade and SNES here, not the Mega Drive at all. That will come into it, which is different. And from level 5 onwards, level 6 onwards, which is the alien, the Indian encampment, the Rocky Mountains.
Where you're going up the mountains,
Yeah, I mean they've removed the Indian characters, which again, I mean, even in 1992, 93, this might have been seen as problematic, you know. So
It's
whether
Nintendo, isn't it? They don't like taking chances.
again, whether you want to play it that or not, you know, they did it, and that's what it was. So the level is mostly intact, but there's losing some areas.
So this could play into why, assuming the Mega Drive's different before we go into that, this could play into why it took another year for this version to come out because of the censorships and things like
Might
that.
have been they maybe tried and couldn't get it. Well, that's why we thought there isn't actually any Japanese versions of the Mega Drive in the SNES game. They don't exist. I thought there might have been a Super Famicom version.
Yeah.
I've only recently found that there wasn't. So what you get in that part,
strange.
it's really because, I mean, I know it's like a Western themed game, but it's got a Japanese style, graphical style, and it's made by a Japanese company, and it didn't stop the Turtles games, which is a Japanese American property, you know.
It was a popular game.
And
It's not like it was just an obscure release.
I wonder if it was a licensing thing, possibly. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
But again, no. But level six is it's lost a few elements and some traps and that as well, and they've cut a few little sections out. And the pace of the level is completely different. It's quite a hard stage in the arcade game because the Indians or Native Americans, if we want to use the proper term in here. The
You've got to be politically correct on this channel.
Where you have to win everything now, don't you? The Indians or they attack you with arrows, like bows and arrows, but the arrows, some of them are flaming arrows, and they tend to fire in arcs, and that's so they're very difficult to avoid. And the Indians cling to the sides of the canyon and all sorts, don't they? They've got like a lot of different
Native Americans.
The Native Americans, yes, the natives, the indigenous people, yeah. They move very differently. They move and attack differently from the bandits.
Yeah.
Where the bandit enemies are like just walk around and fire at you, or I mean you've got the ones that cling to horses and whatnot. But the general basic green ones fire a gun and duck and fire, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got pretty much on this whole level, just those characters. So it's a much easier level. I'm sure it misses out the lift section as well towards the end and skips straight to the fight with
where you're going
Chief.
down the
so you
cliff,
can't get those power ups and all.
bottom.
But you fight with Chief Wigwam now. Chief Wigwam? He's called Chief Wigwam now.
Instead of
Chief Scalpum.
Chief Scalpum, that was it.
Other than that, they're unchanged. But again, that was the first oddity I thought where I was like, well, most of the game's been absolutely cock on to the arcade version, and I don't see why they didn't, unless they've had to squeeze it into 8 meg and a couple bits of being cut here.
For cutting out something like the lift, they either just couldn't be bothered with getting the scrolling working or something like that,
or they've had to
cut some content out and make it fit on the cartridge.
Well, level 7 is actually in some ways slightly more interesting than the arcade because it starts off on the horseback. I mean, the boss of this level is Paco Loco, which is like I'm not even going to say what I think he is because it might offend someone, but he's a fat bloke with a gun.
Isn't he? He's basically like Mongo off Blazing Saddles.
No, well, Mongo's Dark Horse from level 3, isn't he?
Oh yes,
so he's more. So this guy's like an idiot with a machine gun. But anyway, the level itself, you start on a horseback in the arcade, and you play through the whole level on horseback, fighting enemies on horseback, and picking up power-ups on horseback. But the SNES, which I think is a good change of pace, about halfway through the level, you jump off your horse and you fight the rest of the level on foot. Right. So obviously the horse-based enemies are then removed, and then you fight the rest of the level against bandits, and that on foot, hiding behind trees, and that on a straight level. So it's probably been done for creative reasons, just so the whole level isn't just a horse level.
It was only what 4 minutes long or something. But it was probably 2 minutes too long. So
unusual change when you like try to make it arcade perfect, because I mean probably to keep the character on the horse would have made no difference, but it is a change anyway. But there you go. But the other main differences are on the last level. I mean, obviously the best level in the game really in the arcade, because there's that much things to watch out for, little features and traps and that. The arcade has like lots of rock falls and areas where you've got to blow up sections.
Yeah.
It also has a couple of sections where you get hold of a Gatling gun, To be quite fair, they're not that great. You get stuck with a Gatling gun, you've got to shoot a couple of barricades, don't you? You shoot a couple of barricades.
You don't really do much.
But you can't move while you're on those, so you have to jump off them if a bullet comes your way. So
and there's a couple of enemies like hiding in the windows.
After you, right. Your bullets move slow, don't they? The Gatling gun bullets are slow.
You've got to spin the Gatling gun round to shoot them before they shoot you.
You've got to get the gun as well to take these barricades down. So although I don't know the full story, it's quite possible that these were removed because they actually didn't add to the experience, maybe. Yeah. But it is still nice to have them there as just a little change, because these sections aren't even in the SNES. It cuts out quite a chunk before you go straight to fight Richard Rose, the final boss of the level. So not massive differences, but my problem with the SNES, and it is a small problem, but the problem is the SNES is it adds nothing to the experience and only takes something away.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but it takes away.
But then again, from what you've just said there, by taking some stuff away, it kind of does add to the experience. It makes it a little bit better in some places.
That'll be down to the individual.
Yeah, it is. It's down to preference, isn't it?
And this is interesting to me. Again, this is where it changed my mind. Bear in mind, remember what we said at the start of the podcast. I played that game back in about the late 90s.
Yeah.
So we're still talking about almost a decade after the original game released.
Yeah,
and obviously about 7 or 8 years after the 2 console versions. And at that time, I was blown away by how good the SNES one is, and I still am, because it's an excellent arcade conversion. But like I've just said, in my opinion still, I mean, I actually still like the Gatling gun segments, as crap as they are really, because it does add a little... It's almost like a mini game.
It's like variation.
It just shows that the developers were prepared to just like put those little features in, and it could even be a little nod back to maybe things like Young Guns, which had a cool Gatling gun section in it. Anyone who's seen that film, you know.
Actually, you just mentioned mini game now. I think we can't go without mentioning the
two mini games between the 3 versions, and there's 2 different games between the 3 are very different. We'll get to them in a second, and they're both good in their own right, actually. But as I said, back in the day, if I'd bought the Super Nintendo version, I was a massive fan of the arcade game. Now, I'm not reviewing them just yet, but I've got to put this in here now, and you'll get a review towards the end. But I would have been absolutely blown away, even with the whole game. I would have completed that game and probably noticed a couple of bits missing and little changes, small changes. A couple of enemies missing and that and stuff. Like level 6 is like a bit disappointing because of what's missing off there, and 8. But I'd be gone. I've really enjoyed spending 40 or 50 quid because that's still an excellent game. The feel is there. Mark, the feel is absolutely cock on. You can play that, and like I said, most of the strategies you would have used in the arcade game work exactly the same on the Super Nintendo version. So
I had a little bit of battery left in my Steam Deck the other night. I'd just been playing through Double Dragon Gaiden, and I thought, okay, before I go to bed, I'm going to quickly have 10 minutes on the SNES version just to refresh myself.
On Sunset.
On Sunset, yeah, and sure enough. I'd already played the arcade version prior the night before.
I would try,
so it does play exactly
when you do get a bit of time, though, I would definitely try and put half an hour aside for you at some point, maybe even a few weeks, and just have one play on both actually still, just to give your own feeling, give your own thoughts, because again, you've got it when you look at it in years later, things change. So I'll discuss the Mega Drive version. Now, the Mega Drive version on initial startup is disappointing. The colours are very drab.
That's the Mega Drive order.
The technology, and that's fine, you know. And I mean, it's expected, but you've still got to look at it and go. You've got to take it as it is. Bear in mind, if I was looking at this as a kid of maybe 13 back in 90, well, how old would I be? But young, a teenager anyway. Aye. Back in 92, 93, I would have looked at this and I would have been, if I was a massive fan of the arcade game, if I was playing that religiously, like every day, or you know, I was spending 2 or 3 quid a day trying to complete it, and then I bought the Mega Drive version.
You'd be
expecting the arcade game. I would have been very disappointed,
right?
Because it's been completely rewritten. I mean, it's not as, and this is not completely fair, but I want to mention this game. It's not as much as a divisive. It's not as divisive. Is that what you say? It's not as divisive as say Turtles Hyperstone Heist, which is excellent in its own right, and obviously if anyone who's played that game will know that it's not exactly a conversion of Turtles 1 and 2 arcade, but it uses elements from both, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it does introduce like its own content, like you've got Master Tetsu as a boss who's not in either of those games, and making it an excellent game in its own right.
It is really good,
and it's more based on in time in my head.
Turtles too,
the ending and everything is very similar. So you know, or Turtles 4 if it's a SNES version, as they like to confuse people. You know, and well, if you remember, Turtles in Time had some changes between the arcade and SNES.
Yeah,
which is a game we're going to get to one day, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think we should incorporate Hyperstone for that though.
Oh,
I'm happy to. I'd be, because I'd like to play that again. But anyway, as I say, so Sunset Riders isn't as divisive as that because that adds some material as well, so making it it's not even a complete remix of the first 2.
Right.
Where obviously Sunset Riders Mega Drive only has one game to base itself on, and that's the arcade game. And it loses. The initial thing you'll notice if you play through it is it loses 4 of the game's bosses. Like I've already just mentioned when discussing. 4 of the game's bosses. 4. Yeah,
it's
4.
only like 8 or something.
Yeah, loses half the bosses.
Half the bosses.
Loses half of the bosses.
I don't remember that.
And do you know the sad thing and all? It doesn't necessarily lose the poorest bosses. I mean, it keeps Paco Loco, which in my opinion is quite dull. I mean, we just fought him and he's He's not. He hasn't really got much in the way of a pattern.
Is that the guy on the train?
The fat guy.
Oh,
No.
the fat guy.
El Greco, I think, is a great boss. He's a bastard of a boss, but he's a cool
just
boss.
a cheap
He's
shit.
missing. He's gone.
Good.
El Greco's gone. Probably my favourite boss outside of Richard Rose, Hawkeye Hank Hatfield, level 2 boss, gone. Because he fights coolly. If you play the arcade game in the SNES, he appears in the background when the train's gone.
Oh,
and
yes.
He's got mooks and goons with him. And he's fighting you from the background, and when he's nearly dead, he jumps to the foreground.
Yeah.
He's nearly dead. I mean,
He keeps jumping back and forth.
Yeah, he always stays in the background though until his last few.
Yeah.
So, like he basically, his final
flashing
push. Yeah.
red massively.
And I thought he was a cool because he's a mobile boss as well, where characters like Simon Greedwell and Paco Loco just stand in one spot, But he loses Dark Horse, who again I thought was cool because he reminds us of Mungo from Blazing Saddles,
Yeah.
We had a bit of trouble with him and all, didn't we? We actually had
yes, he's a bit tough, him.
He is. Well, he stays on the floor, obviously, with him being on horseback the whole battle. So you've got to get up on the top, but he's just moves quick and he's a good shot as well. Though.
He's got
quite
moves
tough,
up the top as well, so you're having to try and take them out to stop them from shooting you while he's still shooting you.
Mark will lose the Smith brothers, and I think they're cool as hell. The Smith brothers, it's like you've got a guy on the left who throws dynamite at you, and the guy on the right who's got Molotov cocktails.
Yeah.
And you've got to rescue the girls from them, and it's like that section maybe could have just been incorporated somewhere into Mega Drive, maybe after beating level 3 or something, or well, not level 3 definitely, but maybe then level 1 or 2 after Simon Greedwell. He could have went into the tavern and that, But what the Mega Drive changes up the structure of the game quite big. What it is you've got 4 main missions, right, and each mission is split into 2 halves now. So it is still slightly shorter than the arcade and SNES. It is because
so you've still kind of got 8
levels. Yeah, you have that, and
levels.
you'll find out as well. There's not as much missing as you think,
right?
Because obviously you probably picked up on this already now. But 8 levels to 8 levels, they're gonna maybe have 2 levels and then a boss at the end of every 2 levels.
Yes.
So level 1 is pretty much parts of level 1 and 3 combined. Because you'll notice that. Yeah, and the boss at the end of that section is Simon Greedwell, and you fight him as pretty much you expect from the arcade and the SNES.
It's outside the salon or whatever.
That's it. But you might have noticed that level 3 on the arcade as well is quite similar to level 1. You're back in basically in a city, where you're walking past saloons and that. So where you fight Dark Horse at the end, and you go in there to fight the Smith brothers. So they've combined those 2 sections up. There's still cut and paste parts though. I mean the enemy placement and power placement is completely different. The power-ups look different.
Right.
They work the same. But the enemy placement is completely redone as well. But so I said, but level 1 of that is those 2 levels combined, topped off with Simon Greedwell. Level 2, originally obviously you would have went onto a train level where you were on horseback for the full level, but except for fighting obviously Hank Hatfield. Where now it is the train still, but you're on the train, so it's much more based on Paco Loco's level,
right,
which was level 5 initially.
Yeah.
So again, it's chopped up a bit though. It's not an exact rewrite of level 5. And at the end of that, you fight. Sorry, when I said Paco Loco, I meant to say El Greco.
El Greco, yeah.
Well, now you fight Paco Loco instead, which is odd, because what they've done is, because El Greco, if you remember, the Mexican bandit character, he jumps. He's a very mobile character, armed with a whip. And he jumps around the train.
Yeah, he was a nightmare.
The top of the train and fights
He's an absolute shitbag.
But we know Paco Loco from level 7 of the arcade version that he just sits there and just shoots.
On his gun.
What they've done is they've put him like a little wicker basket on top of the cab the cab of the train, and he just sits in there. Yeah, he sits in there with the machine gun. So he does exactly what he would have done originally in the arcade, but he's much lower down now.
Right.
So you can sit in a certain spot and you can just blag him until he's
right,
done.
Okay. Because that was one of the things in the arcade. Found it very difficult to find like a safe space to hide or for any boss, which I suppose good skills in sapping credits, but at the same time you do like to be able to find these little things and become a good player. But I think, as I've said before on a few podcasts, I think Sunset Riders is one of them games where you can't really develop skills on it. It's a bit
again,
of
it's down to being an arcade
sponge
game. I think it's a deliberate thing. It always was going to be, I suppose. Like,
which sounds like the Mega Drive version. Is there more like that than where you can avoid just getting killed mindlessly?
There's a bit with Richard Rose on the final level. I mean, as I said, we'll get to the last level actually, but with Richard Rose, there's the level that area where you fight him is still again mostly intact. I mean,
right.
The pattern stays pretty much the same as the arcade. I mean. But he does have an area where he can just you can just like stand and just shoot him until he.
And you can't do anything.
I think it might be AI related thing more than else, but you go. I watched a walkthrough where he got into a certain area and they just shot him until he's dead. Like
Right.
So, but where level 3 though, level 3 is the mountainside, and I'm glad to say that it's almost caught onto the arcade.
So the
would you
lift's
believe?
back in it on the
The
Mega
lift's
Drive.
back in on the Mega
Yeah.
Drive. That's all there. I remember the Indian characters, the Native Americans, as we're meant to say, they're all there, and they attack you where you expect. There's a new tune on one of those 2 levels. There's a new tune, and typical Konami fashion, like the Castlevania games, the music just rocks, you know.
Yeah.
Just like because these have been created just for the Mega Drive version. There's at least 2 tracks in the game that are made for that, and one of them's on this level. And I forgot to mention as well, mine, just while we're going on about the levels. You fight a boss at the end of the second level of each stage, and you get a poster. A wanted poster appears after the first stage
Okay, right.
to introduce you to the boss.
Yeah.
So you don't really know you're fighting this boss. You're searching for this bounty until you complete the first stage of each level. And at the end of each stage, you get a girl. You have to rescue a girl, a different girl. So she gives you a scratchy voice clip and that, and then you rescue her. Then you get the poster that introduces the boss, like.
Right.
But with level 3, pretty much intact to the arcade, would you believe? Despite like what you've seen already, but split into 2 sections and with a couple of little mix-ups here and there, but generally pretty close to the arcade. And you fight Chief Scalpin at the end. He's called the same name as he is in the arcade. They've kept that way. And again, he actually fights pretty much as you should expect. Puts up a good fight.
This is Sega, though. Sega were all about attitude, so they don't care if you got some racial slander in there and stuff like that.
They weren't as bothered. Back in the day, I tell Mortal Kombat go away, wasn't it? Mortal Kombat Blue, the SNES version of the Water because of all that. But anyway, the last level's quite interesting because it combines pretty much level 7 and 8.
Right.
So I will mention that throughout the 4 levels, or 4 missions with 8 levels, 4 missions of the Mega Drive version of Sunset Riders, there are no horseback sections at all, but we will get to them in a bit because there is horseback sections, just not during the main game, but it's what you said earlier, wasn't it? We talked about bonus levels. I'll get to that in a second.
I can't remember it having like a different bonus level.
No, it's got a very different bonus level. They're quite good, but there is no actual normal horseback level, so you do basically the first half of the final level is Paco Loco's section from the arcade,
right?
And it's got Hawkeye, Hank Hatfield's boss theme running through it. So again, it's cut and paste a little bit. It's chopped up a little bit, and that, but it's the background. Yeah, the background's clearly that level though, and then that transitions into the second half, which is Richard Rose's mansion,
right?
And that is completely rewritten, for the most part. It's a flatter level now. I mean, I actually did like the arcade and SNES version, where especially the arcade, where you had a lot more. Where you were moving up the ladders towards, you felt like you were moving up towards something, as opposed to it's like on a mountainside, as opposed to just a straight level. So they've kept that one simple, but it works and it does what it's meant to do. And like I say, the Richard Rose fight is pretty much what you expected. I'll get into the bonus levels before I go into a little bit more about the why I prefer which version I do now of the home games. The SNES version has the exact same bonus level as the arcade game, which is it's basically a whack-a-mole shoot 'em up, a whack-a-mole first person. Well, I wouldn't call it a first person shooter. It's a reaction mini game, isn't it? It's addictive as hell.
Basically,
it's whack-a-mole in it.
If the enemies pop up in a certain position, I think it's like one of. Is it 12 positions?
I believe it is, yeah.
8 positions, same as what you have on your D-pad, basically. And you've just got to get at them and shoot them before they disappear. Yeah,
you don't hold a cursor over them like Operation Wolf or something. You just literally it's a reaction test, and the speed up and that, and they start moving around. And you have each one. There's only 2. Each one is 50 bad guys, so just hit as many as you can. So it gets really interesting when there's 2 or more players on screen.
But to be fair, it's a good little bonus level. I enjoy it. I prefer it over like Shinobi's bonus level, where you try to shoot ninjas, because I'm shit at that.
Shadow Dancer's even worse.
Yeah, I know.
Christ.
But no, it's a good little fun bonus level, and a good way to achieve a little bit more score.
And it happens twice through the game, so it's not too intrusive. Now, the Mega Drive version instead has a horse riding section, so they had to squeeze it in there somewhere, which I'm pleased they did. And what happens is it looks a little bit like the start of level 2 of the arcade game, where you've got a stage, you've got a coach, you've got a covered coach. With someone riding it, and there was a guy hoying dynamite at the back of you. What you've got now is you've got a girl, and she's hoying power-ups at you. So you're on your horse and you just catch power-ups. Now, I watched a walkthrough recently, and that's all she threw power-ups, but I am quite sure that on the harder difficulty levels,
She throws dynamite.
chucks the odd bomb at you, which she has to, but I don't know what it would do. I'm not sure if it killed you or if it just maybe freezes you for a few seconds, which would make sense, so you can't collect any power-ups for maybe 5 seconds or something. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Instead of killing you outright, it's a bonus level.
I'll try to remember to play if we want harder.
Where you get this bonus level at the end of every mission as well, so you get the end of the first 3, so you get three attempts, and obviously it's good for just stopping at one point. It's probably in some ways easier than the one from the SNES, but it's nice to have a bit of variety.
Yeah,
it does work. It works within the game. And
so is there any enemies to shoot? None at all.
What in the bonus level? No, there's
so
you don't even shoot. You just collect, and she keeps chucking stuff at you.
But
and you pick it up.
You only collect. I mean, you collect the twin shooter, and then you collect the more powerful bullets. That's it.
I'm pleased you mentioned that actually, because I nearly didn't tell you. But the Mega Drive version of Sunset Riders seems to have a lot more emphasis on collecting coins and money.
Right.
So yeah, I mean the arcade and SNES has got cash bags.
Yeah.
But they usually turn up with power-ups. But this time, you'll kill some bosses like Simon Greedwell, for example. He drops money that you pick up now.
Right.
You can actually pick up. You get a few seconds to pick it up for the money.
You don't bury him with his money.
He doesn't get his money. Yeah, you steal it from him. He still tries to get you, but you just tell him to fuck off. But yeah, and I thought the funniest one. I'm pleased you said this because I really did want to mention Paco Loco from level 2. When you kill him, and what he does is, I mean, in the arcade version, he falls out of his tower.
Yeah.
And he hits the floor, and you know what he says, and then he shoots into nothing, and then dies, and then you blow him up with a bit of dynamite and the door. But on the Mega Drive version, obviously he just falls off the train,
right?
He bounces out of sight, but he drops loads of sweets, like actual sweets, sweet candies, covered wrapped up sweets, so they bounce up off his corpse, and that you can grab them for money and that. So there's a lot more emphasis on just little power-ups and collect.
Yeah.
Collect them up, So
bonbons, as they call.
He's the only one who does that and all. It's like, is that what you? No wonder he's like the size he was. He must have been a chronic diabetic.
His teeth fell out and everything.
Especially when we're saying that, how many more did he have? Unless he was stockpiling them because he had maybe a diabetic brother or something, so his brother couldn't get them. So it might have been canny noble cause, really. I wonder if his brother was El Grecho then. I wonder because and he stole his. Anyway, I don't know. It's something to give thought. Right, but what I will say. That's the Mega Drive and SNES versions covered. Without reviewing it this second, because I'll throw back to you for a second, Mark. I will say I was very impressed by the SNES version back in the day, and I still am now. And I wasn't impressed by the Mega Drive.
In terms of the conversion.
Yeah, in terms of the technical achievement and that for the SNES version. But now, if someone said to me and says, look, I want you to play 2 versions, I want you to play the arcade version, I want you to play like one of the conversions, maybe back to back, I'd choose the Mega Drive because it's its own beast. It's like having it's more like having an adaptation than an actual conversion. I mean, the Super Nintendo says is very close to the arcade, but just not as good.
Well, funny enough, Glenn, we're doing a podcast here, so I'm going to say to you, if you could play the arcade version, what other home conversion would you like to play as well?
I'd be playing the Mega Drive version.
There you go, we did it.
Definitely, because it doesn't matter anymore about it's more of it's about experience.
Is it more of a fun game, would you say?
No, it's not more fun. I mean, they're all in gameplay wise, they're all as good as each other.
You'd want to play that one because it's the more different experience.
Different, yeah. Because if I played the arcade, then played the SNES version, it's just like playing the arcade game, but slightly watered down. So I might as well just play the arcade game twice. You see what I'm coming from?
So I mean, that's good advice to the listeners. So if you're a big fan and for some reason I'm sure you will have, but if you haven't played the Mega Drive version, definitely go and check that one out because there's enough differences to make it worthwhile.
The thing is, in this day and age now, we're no longer bothered about technical side of it, so you're not going to look at the graphics and say they're shite. We just don't now because we know that the technology is very old. You're not expecting to be blown away. So the Super Nintendo's the cartridge is twice as big for a start, but and it came out later, so they've had more time to hone it. It's like you just wouldn't bother with that version except out of as a collector's item.
Yeah,
you'd go
because it is like you say, just a
with the accessibility
in
it. Exactly, with the accessibility we've got in this day and age. If you turn around and says, "Look, I want to play Sunset Riders," you're just going to boot up the arcade game. So and simple. If you wanted to just try something different, just out of curiosity, you'd just check the Mega Drive out just to see how different it is in places and that. But all 3 games, two conversions. Both conversions are very good in their own right. Yeah, I feel like we're transitioning into a review anyway. Right?
Yeah, we are. But I think, I feel, like I say, I haven't played this. I don't think I actually have played this game since me and you probably last played it,
I am,
which will have
until
been
the
on
other week.
MAME at
That's
some
waiting.
point.
That's why I just suggested it at the Blue. I says, look, should we do Sunset Riders? It's just it'll bring back old memories, like, you know. And it was a great game. So.
Now, I'm pretty sure I've played the SNES version since. I don't know why, but I think I have. But I definitely haven't played the Mega Drive version since the days you had it on cartridge and we played it properly on a Mega Drive, you know.
I forgot to mention with the Mega Drive, by the way, you've only got half as many characters. Still a two-player game, yeah. You've got Kamano and Billy.
Right.
Where it cuts out the other two guys, you know. I can't remember the names right now.
I mean, to be honest, though, the characters don't really play too differently.
No, you've got two of them have shotguns, two of them have pistols,
yeah.
so they have a different type of spread. I actually prefer the guys with the shotguns.
Yeah, because you get 3 bullets, don't you? Spreading out.
And they get 2 shotguns as well when you get the power up, so you end up like near invincible.
So 6. So yeah, that actually makes sense. Playing somebody with a shotgun, you'll have a better time.
Yeah.
But so I'm not going to review the SNES and the Mega Drive because it's not fair because I haven't played them recently.
I will. I'll not give them a full review because we've already went through that. Yeah. But I'll give them a score because I've got a score for them.
I'll start us off. I'm going to give the arcade game a 7 out of 10. I think it's a great game. I enjoyed playing it again today. It's nice and short. Doesn't overstay its welcome. It's very what's wrong with that?
Judas.
It's a colourful, good looking game.
You're only getting us back for Fighting Force, Mark.
No,
it is. It's revenge for Fighting Force.
I think 7's a good number.
7 out of 10. Do you know what I mean? 7 out of 10.
There's definitely many more better games out there.
We're definitely going to have to do a Double Dragon 3 review, won't we? We need a fully polarising review. I
don't think we can use minus figures on reviews. I don't think it's fair, but that game would just get a 0. And I'll tell you now, official Double Dragon 3 gets a 0.
Which version though?
Well, the American. I've got the Japanese one to play through.
We have to try the Japanese version, which is better.
That might get a 1 out of 10 or something, but we'll see. But yeah, so Sunset Riders for me, from Mark, it's a 7.
Right, well, Sunset Riders Arcade for me is a 9.
No one cares. My review's the only
nobody cares. It's your baby, but still, it's a 9 because it's a great looking game, great sounding game. It feels good to say because I've just played the game recently as well, so it does feel great, you know. Many more games were out there at the time. It came out in 91, I believe, late 91 as well. So it definitely wasn't a unique game for its time, but the theme was. I mean, we've got a couple of suggestions actually for other games in a minute. So then you go straight 9 for the arcade. Now the Super Nintendo was at 8, because that again solid, very good conversion, but I'll give it a full point less because. Obviously, you've got like a good chunk of the game that sort of loses quite a bit.
Yeah.
But again, as a conversion, very, very good, you know, pretty caught on. Mega Drive game 7.5. I've still got to give it a little bit less because it is, from the technical standpoint, it's never going to be able to touch this SNES for quality and that. And the sound effects are actually...
They'll be scratchy and that.
They're very painful, nearly. They're quite... There is some in there, which is good. Not as many as
half a megabit cartridge. Yeah, samples have been tiny.
I still think a 7.5 is a pretty solid review for a game. It said, again, even though it's got a slightly lower review than the Super Nintendo version, if you were to play one of the 2 conversions, just as a curiosity, I would be giving the Mega Drive version a shot, just for the more surprises and a different game structure. You know, like I said, the same way as if you might be the bloke who picks up Turtles Tournament Fighters on the Mega Drive just because you want a different experience. Not a good experience necessarily, but a different experience.
That's a good
Obviously,
way of putting it.
The SNES version's got a community in it. It's actually got a small community.
It's not the worst game in the world.
I want to suggest at least one other game as well. And that obviously will move away from the games I've already mentioned, like Cowboys and Moon Mesa and Mystic Warriors, because they've already been discussed, but they're very similar. But either Metal Slug. But if you like that thing, Gunsmoke by Capcom, which I love that as well. I mean, it's vertical. It's a top down. It's almost some consider it a sequel to Commando when it's not, but it's now, too close to not have a.
I will say though, after our top 10 8-bit game episode number 10, go and check it out, people. I preferred the NES version.
Well, it takes that classic Capcom reimagining route. I hate that word. But where they create a new game. Well, I mean, it's not completely, but it's shorter in a way. But obviously, with the extra material, like when you work out how the posters work and that, that you've got a game.
It was a bloody addictive little game. But I ended up playing half an hour. So I meant to do like 5-10 minutes for some video footage.
What I like with the arcade game of Gunsmoke is though that it's a big game. There's 9 levels, and they're different. They're all different, and you've got 9 different bosses in a game. Just like how Sunset Riders got these cool bosses. That's got like a lot a variety in its boss characters and that, you know. Again, different strategies for fighting them, and some of them are tough as nails, like. So that's one suggestion from me, that if you like, if you love Sunset Riders, maybe give this much older game a shot as well.
I can't think off the top of my head of anything. I mean, for me, it's.
I suppose we'll mention some, won't we?
I tell you what, and there was an arcade game there that was similar. It's the kind of like the prequel to Metal Gear. Is it Gun? What's it called? Gunlock or something?
Gun Frontier. No, that's a shooter.
No.
That's oh man, I know what it is. It's because it's got
two
sequels. It's got a sequel. It's
by the same guys who did Metal Gear before they moved to the SNK Neo Geo hardware.
Can't remember the name for now.
Oh shit!
Let's have a look. Let's have a quick
Yeah, we've got to Google that. It's
yeah.
But that was a really good run and gun type game. Again, like Contra.
Had a SNES conversion as well, didn't it?
Yeah, very much. You could feel it was basically the prequel to Metal Gear as such, and it's definitely one I'd recommend.
Yeah.
But Glenn's just looking up the name of it now, so we can give you that information.
Gunforce?
Gunforce,
yeah,
that was it.
Gunforce, that was it. I didn't even find it, no.
Yeah.
So there's two, and they released the first one, I think, for the Super Nintendo, which is got a really good
The first one I didn't think much of, but Gunforce 2 was absolutely tremendous.
Well, Gunforce 2 feels like Metal Slug Zero, doesn't it? And
yeah.
the thing is, I've looked up information, there's a lot of fans, Metal Slug hardcores, who actually do consider that
to be the
Zero.
Zero.
Yeah, Metal
Makes
Slug
sense. It just feels pretty much the same. The graphics look similar in that as well.
Then I know we're diversifying a bit there, but then you start going, well, is In the Hunt Metal Slug underwater with the graphic? It's that graphic style. Is Undercover Cops the beat them up with metal slugs? You know what I mean? It's like which is a game I think we won't mind touching one day as well.
Who knows? But I think it's about time we rode off into the sunset as well, mate.
Yeah.
I managed to say that one well.
Right.
But yeah, I'll do it again. I think it's about time we rode off into the sunset, brother, because I'm going for a meal soon with the family. Thank you once again, everyone, for listening. If you enjoyed the content today, please subscribe to the channel or follow us on Spotify or Google or Apple, whatever your flavour is. As always, thanks, and hopefully we'll see you again next time. And don't forget to check out the rest of the content on the show as well. This is episode 16, so we've got
many
15.
more in the pipeline, man. There's many more to go.
We've got 15 previous episodes in the back catalogue, so jump in. There might be something else you like there. And that's it from us today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night, good day. See you next time.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Marry me with